Tonight, Acting Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Baba re-strategizes on tackling insecurity in the South and Southeast, meets with police commanders from the regions. Search for killers of 11 soldiers in Benue continues as state government says 10 suspects have been identified. Military refutes claim of mass killing of residents in Konshisha. People's Democratic Party governors slammed the Buhari administration for rising ethnic and religious tensions, say the president lacks capacity to govern. And tributes pour in as the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, dies at the age of 99. Plus business, sports, news from Abuja, and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System limits enrollment and validation of bank verification numbers to deposit money and microfinance banks in latest BVN operating guidelines.
On sports news tonight, Bayelsa State athlete Ivezibe Gagbe targets 10 gold medals after winning 6 in swimming at the ongoing National Sports Festival.
And from Abuja, efforts to end the industrial action by residents continues. Minister of Labour and Employment meets with association's leadership in Abuja.
Again, security comes in the front burner tonight as efforts continue to douse the tension in many states across the country, arrest perpetrators of attacks and ensure safety of lives and property. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, today met with commanders from the Southeast and the South regions to discuss the increasing cases of insecurity in the zones, identify the problems and proffer solutions. The acting IGP says that of the Southeast and South has become expedient in light of the recent happenings and needs immediate attention. It is the acting IGP's first strategic meeting with commanders. Meanwhile, the acting IGP also made some key appointments, retaining Mr. Frank Mba as the Force Public Relations Officer, Hafiz Inuwa as Force Secretary, and Idowu Owonwa as Principal Staff Officer.
We have a very critical situation in the South and Southeast geopolitical zone, which needs immediate attention and which needs rejigging our operational strategy to ensure that this thing is nipped on the board within the quickest possible time. We are going to discuss this as a team here, and thereafter all AIGs in these zones and the Deputy Inspector General of Police that is supervising the 2 geopolitical zones will have to go back and implement whatever we must have decided with a view to seeing a change. What we are going to do here is to appreciate from those on ground what is the problem and how do we solve the problem.
Meanwhile, Senate President Ahmed Lawan is calling for increase in funding for security agencies in the country to procure adequate technologies and recruit manpower needed to combat crime in line with global best practices. He made the call in Imo State while inaugurating some road projects in the state capital. He condemns the recent attack on police stations in Imo State and the release of inmates at the Correctional Service, noting that security agencies in the country need more resources to fight the spate of crime.
This kind of attitude, this kind of insurrection could lead to insurgency. We have witnessed that in the Northeast. Thank God, by 2015, the insecurity or the insurgency in the northeast started to come down because of the efforts of the federal government of Nigeria. We have unfortunately discovered we have some other security challenges, from banditry to militancy. Recently, the president changed the service chiefs and the CDS, and we have new service chiefs. In fact, we even have a new acting IGP, the Inspector General of Police. This is in an effort to ensure that fresh ideas, fresh efforts are brought into bear to change the situation of our security across the country. We are going to give funds when requested from the security agencies for them to acquire more manpower, which are essential, more technology and other resources and platforms for them to be more effective.
We're in Imo State now. Still in Imo State, the Nigerian Correctional Service has released the names and pictures of some inmates who escaped from the Owerri Custodial Center in the state. So far, pictures of 36 of the escaped inmates have been unveiled, while the names and pictures of other inmates are being released in batches. The release of the pictures follows the voluntary return of over 90 of the escapees to the facility. More than 1,000 inmates escaped from custody on Monday after gunmen attacked the Imo Correctional Center. During the attack, vehicles and part of some buildings within the premises were razed, while the gunmen also attacked the Imo State Police Command headquarters. In the north-central state of Benue, the state government says it has identified 10 suspects allegedly involved in a recent attack on some soldiers in Konshisha, local government area of the state. The soldiers were attacked by armed militia following their deployment to end the lingering border conflict between Bonta community and the Igede people of Oju local government area.
Igede and Thieves are predominantly farmers and they share boundaries. Both communities are about 376 kilometers from Makurdi, the Benue State capital. Igede is in Oju local government area, while the Thief people are in Konshisha local government area of Benue State. They have been drawn in a long communal battle over land ownership, resulting in loss of lives as well as property. The military has been present for peacekeeping purposes, but things went awry when 10 soldiers were reportedly killed by suspected bandits.
The report reaching me is that the troops, while they were in Konshisha, they were attacked. But the security agencies were able to repel them.
Backtrack to January 2021 when both communities resumed offensives with records of attacks and killings from both sides. Government wades in to resolve the impasse, taking a decision to adjust the boundaries between the two communities.
The week before Easter, we had agreed that today, Friday, 9th of April, the boundary committee will move to where the boundary challenge is. And unfortunately, 2 days after they went back, crisis erupted.
The killing of the soldiers is raising fears and concerns from Benue indigents on the likelihood of reprisal attacks, and this many believe would affect innocent villagers who perhaps know nothing about the killings.
So far, I've not heard about anything like invasion compared to what happened yesterday. But why I have to let you know is the disturbing report that 70 people were killed and a number of houses destroyed. Yes, I'm aware that houses were destroyed, and that is the report I got from the chairman. I've not been there. And also the chairman told me that 4 people died in the course of this crisis. 2 of them were the bandits, which exchanged fire with the soldiers, and they were caught in the crossfire. They were killed. The other person is a cripple who was in one of the rooms that was destroyed, and so he fell on him and he died. And the other person, it was a lady, middle age, who was running, and in the process she fell and died. That was the report I got from the chairman. So I'm taken aback to hear that a group, an unknown group, coming out to do a press conference to say that 70 people were killed. It's not to my knowledge.
Although the governor confirmed the military offensive has since stopped, the ruins and the humanitarian crisis created by the episode leaves victims with a sour taste.
Meanwhile, the Defense Headquarters has dismissed reports in some quarters claiming massive killings and destruction of houses by the military in Konshisha local government area in Benue State. In a statement by its spokesperson, Brigadier General Onyema Nwachukwu, the Defense Headquarters described the reports as false, insisting that 11 troops of the Operation Wellstroke were brutally murdered by the bandits in Bonta. It adds that reinforcement later sent to the area was also attacked and engaged in a gun battle with the bandits, 10 of whom were killed in the process. The military explains further, the Defense Headquarters wishes to put it on record that apart from this initial 10 bandits, there are no other civilian casualties recorded in any part of Konshisha till date. There was never a massacre, as being touted by some mischief makers. It notes that the villagers fled their homes for fear, with the bandits occupying them and launching attacks on the troops from there. According to the military, rather than blame troops for the destruction in the villages, the armed bandits should be held responsible for the destruction, adding that some of the buildings were actually burnt during earlier communal clashes between Konshisha and Oju. We'll have more on the attacks in Benue State in just a minute, but another jailbreak was fought today, this time in Benue State, where 5 inmates and 2 correctional officers were injured after a riot at the prison facility in the state capital. Now, the command's public relations officer, DSC Abubakar Adam, confirmed the incident and explained that 2 factors led to the unrest. He said transferees from the south serving sentences in Bochi attempted to replicate the Owerri prison break. Secondly, the inmates were protesting the prosecution of an inmate and his staff guilty of trafficking in mobile phones. The protesters were reported to have broken into a store, carted away tools which they used for attempted jailbreak, but their plan was foiled by the armed squad in the yard. Normalcy has since returned, as the Commissioner for Police says a reinforcement has been sent to the facility to forestall a recurrence. In part 2, after the break, we'll have more on the security situation in Benue State. We'll be joined by an intelligence expert and managing director of the Beacon Consulting Limited, Kabiru Adamu. He'll be joining us from our Abuja studio. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Acting Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Baba re-strategizes on tackling insecurity in the South and Southeast, meets with police commanders from the regions. Search for killers of 11 soldiers in Benue continues as state government says 10 suspects have been identified. Military refutes claim of mass killing of residents in Konshisha. People's Democratic Party governors slammed the Buhari administration for rising ethnic and religious tensions, say the president lacks capacity to govern. And tributes pour in for the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, who dies at the age of 99. staying with our theme for the night, more on security now in the country, especially in Benue State. We're now being joined on the news at 10 by security risk and intelligence expert and managing director of the Beacon Consulting Limited, Kabiru Adamu. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Kabiru, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
It's my pleasure, Amarachi. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm sure you've had your eyes and your ears on the ground to the happenings in Benue State. What's your reaction to what's been going on, especially the killing of soldiers and then reports of bombardments by the military?
Well, the reality is that we have a situation where non-state actors are challenging the supremacy of the use of coercive force by the state. And in this instance, they are attacking and have killed the highest ranked instrument of that coercive force in the state, which is the military. And so that worries me because all sovereign states should be able to exercise the powers of that sovereign authority through several levels. And where you have that highest level attacked and killed, in several parts of the country across the period, it makes me very, very worried. That's one. Two, it also tells me that if the military and the state as a whole does not come out to draw a line and ensure that the perpetrators of these acts are punished in a very transparent manner, then we're likely to see a repetition of that across other parts of the country, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing, copycat attacks on police formations across the country already. It appears the security operatives and the formations are major targets for the bandits now and some other restive groups. What, apart from what you've already said, what else would you suggest as, a solution to help stop this trend? Because as these attacks go on, insecurity is rising.
Exactly, and at the root of all of this are two major issues. One of them is the perception of marginalization and real marginalization. Now, in the case of Benue State, we know it was an inter-community violence between two residents of two local governments. And it appears the state government has attempted to, mediate between these two communities. And unfortunately, it also appears that one side of that, those communities were not very happy with what the state government was doing. So this may have triggered, the incident. Now, the second thing, which is absolutely also important in this regard, is the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Wherever these non-state actors are able to challenge the state, then they are using arms, and in some instances, military-grade weapons. Now, the saddest part of this is that the proliferation of small arms and light weapons is well documented in Nigeria over a period of the last probably 20 years. And unfortunately, we haven't seen enough effort by the different levels of government to address this huge challenge. And so we're seeing an increase in the level of insecurity across the country. Documents available to me suggest that there could be between 6 million to 35 million small arms and light weapons in the hands of non-state actors. And so wherever you have this type of inter-community violence, militias emerge armed with these small arms and light weapons, and then who try to project the interest of the community. Sometimes these militias are armed by members of that community so that they can exact whatever pound of flesh from the other side. So the one way forward, we need to address this issue of small arms and light weapons. The second thing is the state needs to establish its authority. Now, I'm not suggesting that we deploy the military which is what we've been doing over the years. I'm suggesting that we establish social order. And that would come, there are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in security across the country. So we need to ensure that all of these 27 are playing their role. A lot of discussion have been held regarding introducing traditional rulers into the security architecture. I think it's time to do that. They understand these dynamics. They are able to support, especially the civil security departments, better as against rolling out the military in the manner that we've rolled them out recently.
Yeah, and I think that, this worrying trend, is spreading across the country, so we have already established. But the police is, the closest security operative to communities, to the people. And right now it appears not just, morale that is down, but, they're actually like, defenseless, I think, in the face of these attacks. So the intelligence is out there, but at the end of the day, is it really being used? Is it really being applied, to the situation?
So I mean, after the incidents in Imo State, specifically the attack on the Correctional Service Center in Owerri, it emerged that perhaps the DSS may have sent out a report to several security agencies suggesting that there is an impending attack. Now, if that is confirmed, it means the correctional service and other, including the police, failed to react to intelligence to protect themselves. And so that raises the question, what value do these agencies place on the intelligence that is provided for them? Now, time would not allow me to go into the intelligence cycle from, when agencies are tasked to the collection as well as the dissemination of intelligence. Unfortunately, that's the key. How do we tap into this cycle? What advantages do these 27 ministries and departments and agencies that I mentioned take out of this actionable intelligence whenever it's provided for them? And I think that's the way to go. The second point is I'm not hearing the language of concentric cycles of security within the Nigerian security infrastructure. When you place the concentric cycle of security, it means even if the first cycle is breached, then before the enemy or whoever is the perpetrator reaches the second concentric cycle, you are able to detect him and then to arrest him as the case may be. Unfortunately, because we don't have these concentric levels of security, and the reason we don't have it is because there is no coordination, in terms of operations between these 27 ministries, departments, and agencies. So you have one agency, sort of, in this case, the police that we're discussing, attempting to protect its own assets and infrastructure. But where you have these concentric cycles, you would have a coordinated effort by the 27 departments. And I think among them, they should have enough personnel to deploy and possibly enough equipment to use in terms of deterring the perpetrator of whatever attack that it is. So again, the police should not see itself as a single element within the security architecture. Yes, they are challenged. Yes, they've been attacked during the EndSARS protest. They are currently being attacked. But if they work together as part of the other 27 ministries and departments in security, then they will be able to defend themselves better.
Kabiru, I believe that some of these conversations should be had with security operatives themselves. But thanks again, for just scratching the surface, as we go deeper in the coming days. Thank you again for joining us on the News at 10.
My pleasure, Amarachi. Stay safe.
Let's segue now to the second batch of 5 students of the Federal College of Forestry, Benue State, who were released yesterday by their abductors. They've been handed over to the management of the college for onward reunion with their families. The students, 4 males and a female, 3 of whom are from the same parents, were handed over to the provost of the college, Dr. Muhammad Usman, by the Benue State Government today.
Another set of 5 students abducted from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization regained their freedom after spending over 26 days in captivity.
Officer in charge of Operation Yaki.
Their release comes days after the first set of 5 students were recovered and handed over to their parents. After undergoing medical and psychological evaluation, they reunite with their families and the management of their school. Despite the harrowing experience in the hands of the bandits, the freed students say they are determined to complete their studies at the college, with hopes that others still in custody will return safely.
I want to continue because we have done a lot of things and we have already write an exam for first semester. We have seen our result, and for our second semester exam, we have been reading for it to be able to write our exam.
We thank God the Almighty that have made their release possible through the stakeholder that that could give them the capability, the courage to see that we have received them today successfully.
Although the fate of the remaining 29 students seemed to hang in the balance, the provost of the college remains hopeful that there will be light at the end of the tunnel and others will return safely.
On behalf of the Forestry Research Institute and the Federal College of Forestry, Kaduna, we are very grateful. We are thanking Kaduna State Government, and still we need their support. As he said, we want them to give us full support, full cooperation until all our students are back.
His conviction gets an assurance from the State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, who says government will match its promises with action.
The government will not relent in its work and commitment towards recovering the remaining hostages by the grace of God.
As the students reunite with their families, what's more important to them is for authorities concerned to hasten the rescue of their colleagues so they all can return to class.
When the news at 10 returns, the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, passes a vote of no confidence on President Muhammadu Buhari. The APC disagrees. Plus, Nigerian Interbank Settlement System limits enrollment of bank verification numbers to deposit money and microfinance banks in latest BVN operating guidelines. We'll have more in business news. Join us again. Politics now. The main opposition, the People's Democratic Party, is lending its voice to the security situation in the country, calling for the devolution of power and comprehensive restructuring of the country because of what the party calls the sharp divide of Nigerians along ethnic and religious considerations by the current government. After a 5-hour meeting behind closed doors, the chairman of the forum and governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, told journalists at Government House Makurdi, the Benue State capital, that insecurity and the value of human life has greatly degenerated under the watch of the APC. The PDP Governors Forum meeting, hosted by Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State, had in attendance the governors of most of the PDP governors, National Chairman of the PDP, Prince Uche Secondus, and Senator Wali Jibril, the PDP Board of Trustees Chairman, and the Bauchi State Governor, who was represented by his deputy.
We express deep concern and alarm at the deteriorating relationship between groups in Nigeria. We, the governors of PDP, are deeply worried that indeed all our fault lines and differences are being stretched to the limit by a government that clearly lacks the capacity to govern. The meeting agreed that this has given rise to ethnic and tribal tensions, religious divisions, and various forms of social and political cleavages. The governors concluded that Nigeria is in dire need of leadership at the federal level to avert the looming disaster. The meeting was similarly alarmed that security of lives and property of Nigerians are no longer guaranteed under the present government as a result of leadership incompetence and mismanagement of the nation's affairs, while noting that governors have a role to play in handling of some of the worsening situations. They regret their hands are tied behind their backs as the entire coercive authority in the country is monopolized by the APC federal government. Time has come to take advantage of the ongoing constitutional amendment process to decentralize the security architecture of Nigeria and involve states and local governments.
On the other hand, the All Progressives Congress Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee has passed a vote of confidence on President Muhammadu Buhari, praising him for his handling of the wave of insecurity in the country. The decision was part of resolutions taken at the 9th meeting of the committee in Abuja today. In a statement by the committee's National Secretary, John Akpadudede, the APC urged leaders at all levels to show restraint in comments that do not unite the country in the face of insecurity. Other resolutions of the meeting include to set up a registration appeal committee to consider complaints or dissatisfaction that may arise from party members on the conduct of the membership registration, revalidation, and update exercise, and in line with approved templates and guidelines for the exercise. The Guardian newspaper has launched a book capturing how the newspaper became the flagship of the Nigerian media, especially in its first 10 years. Top government officials, publishers, news media managers, and journalists all gathered at the launch of the book in Lagos to celebrate the founding publisher of the Guardian newspaper, Alex Ibro. Our correspondent, Dari Idowu, reports.
So if one does it well and does it to a point where...
It's a walk down memory lane for many of the guests in this auditorium. The book chronicles the first 10 years of the Guardian newspaper, the key actors, and now the founding publisher, Alex Ibro, shaped high-quality journalism.
The Guardian as Nigeria.
The 600-page book, titled The Making of the Nigerian Flagship, A Story of the Guardian, gives first-hand recollection of experiences of journalists and writers who have a history with the newspaper.
Interviewing about 16 of our bosses and some of our colleagues to gather materials for this book was not easy. But the strategy of pulling almost the key figures of that era into a digital platform made it possible for us to gather more materials, authenticate facts and narrations. It helped us to get our seniors and colleagues at The Guardian to buy into the project and support us.
The Guardian now became a paper that will write the news and now research, beef it up, give it the background information and commentary. It was the first newspaper in Nigeria that does not just write news. It will write the news, analyze the news, give the background to the news, and make commentary on the news.
The publisher and chairman of the Guardian newspaper, Lady Maiden Alex Ibro, could not but touch on issues bordering on governance and the state of the nation.
We would like our president to know that a return to true federalism will solve most of our security and economic challenges. It is not new. The issue of restructuring is one of the promises that the administration of President Buhari hasn't kept. It is part of the APC manifesto, and there is a report of the El Rufai committee that the party received since 2018.
Mr. Vice President, sir.
The keynote speaker, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, speaks on the role of the media in nation building.
It is said that journalism is the first rough draft of history. It is true that reportage shapes the perception and understanding of events. It shapes the memories and can even influence behavior, for good or for ill. For decades, the men and women that work at The Guardian have drawn inspiration from the immortal words of Uthman Danfodio on its masthead: "Conscience is an open wound. Only the truth can heal it." It is the role of journalists to tell the truth, even when it is inconvenient. This mission has a special resonance in this day and age.
The conversation here is expected to be taken beyond the book launch, as some of the speakers suggest a renewed dialogue to address the country's challenges.
What to me was the peak of it all was a statement made by Maiden Ibro. She was speaking directly to the Vice President about where our country is, and it's not in a good place, and that we are living a lie, and that if we don't sit back and look at the structure of our country, the terms in which we live with each other, we'll fall apart.
Cover and 15,000.
The book, authored by Aaron Kodia and Sheung Ogunsheitan, gives an insight into the birth and nurturing of one of the most respected media organizations in the country. The founding publisher is celebrated for promoting knowledge and political stability through reliable media content. Dari Idowu, Channels Television News.
We're going back to Abuja now, but with Gloria Mezuke for more on the news at 10. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Amarachi. Welcome to Abuja. The federal government's delegation has been meeting with striking resident doctors on ways to resolve their ongoing industrial action. The government delegation is led by the Minister of Labour and Employment, while others in attendance include the Minister of State for Health, Olorunibe Mamora, members of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, and members of the Nigerian Medical Association, among others. Before the meeting went into a closed door, the Minister of Labour warned the resident doctors to stop toying with lives of citizens in the name of demanding for better welfare for its members. The minister adds that neither NERD nor the Nigerian Medical Association is a trade union, noting that their actions have grievous consequences. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors embarked on an indefinite strike on April the 1st to demand, among other things, the payment of house officers' salaries, abolition of bench fees, payment of national minimum wage, consequential adjustment arrears, and the strike has been on for 9 days. Meanwhile, the closed-door meeting between the Minister of Labour and Employment and the striking resident doctors has ended, and the minister is now briefing the media. According to him, a 5-person committee has been set up to look into some of the issues of concern raised by the NERD. The Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma says no amount of distraction and attacks by unscrupulous elements can deter his government from delivering the dividends of democracy to the people of the state. Governor Uzodinma made this comment in Owerri, the Imo State capital, today during the inauguration of the newly rehabilitated Evan Enwerem Road, formerly known as Akachi Road. The governor says his government remains committed to uplifting infrastructure in the state and also ensure that the welfare of Imo people remains a top priority for his government.
This was the state of the Akachi Road, now Evan Enwerem Way, as of January 14, 2020. Dotted with potholes and the surface washed away by erosion, making it difficult for motorists to access. According to the state government, it was one of the roads awarded to be reconstructed by the immediate past administration, but wasn't executed before the tenure ended. When Governor Uzodinma assumed office 1 year ago, he took up the task of redesigning and reconstructing the road, and today it wears a new look. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan is the special guest to commission this 2.8-kilometer dual carriageway. For the governor, no amount of distraction will deter his administration from working.
It is unfortunate that some detractors, through their untoward actions in the last few days, have tended to slow down the activities of our government. But nothing, and I repeat, nothing can actually stop us from getting to our destination.
The Senate President Ahmed Lawan wants Imo residents to own the project and protect it. He commends the governor for his investment in infrastructure development in the state.
This project, this road, from today, or in fact, since its completion, ceased to be a government affair. This road, and indeed any other road and government projects in this state, are the people's projects. They are your own. They don't belong to the state government. Your resources were utilized with prudence and economy to give you these projects. Ensure that you utilize the projects well and protect your projects as well.
No doubt, the rehabilitation of the Evan Enwerem Way will ease traffic and boost economic activities within that axis. Eyitope Kutei, Channels Television News.
That's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Amarachi in Lagos for more on the news at 10.
Thanks, Gloria. We're off on another break. Tributes pour in as the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, dies at the age of 99. Stay with us.
Time for some business news now. The Nigerian Interbank Settlement System has released updated standard operating guidelines for bank verification matching system in the banking industry. The updated guidelines show that deposit money banks as well as microfinance banks are the officially recognized enrolling banks for customers' identity verification within the banking industry. Well, let's check in on the stock market now. Ekaite Afia has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I'm Ekaite Afia. The local equities market sustained the bullish run from the midweek as the all-share index gained 17 basis points. And there it is. The banking sector was still the major driver of the gain as the sector was up 0.41%. Now, on the activity level, a total of 3,507 deals were done with over 160 million shares valued at 1.28 billion naira. On the list of top trades, stocks of mutual benefit led the chart as the most traded. All in all, for the week, the market was negative, down by 0.12%. And traders believe the market is relatively stable now, and they expect better performance in the week to come. That's all for the Stock Market Report. I'm Ekaite Afia. Back to you.
And that's business news tonight. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, Tenyola. And President Muhammadu Buhari has extended his condolences to Queen Elizabeth II, saying the death of the Duke of Edinburgh is the end of an era and his contributions to the Commonwealth will be remembered for generations to come. Simon Pusey has more in this, more on this in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news for Around the World in 5. Buckingham Palace has announced that Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth's husband, has died at the age of 99. The news was released on Friday morning by Buckingham Palace with the statement, "It is with deep sorrow that Her Majesty the Queen has announced the death of her beloved husband, His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. His Royal Highness passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle." A few minutes later, a notice was attached to the palace gates, as is traditional. Prince Philip was born on the Greek island of Corfu on the 10th of June 1921. He married Princess Elizabeth in 1947, 5 years before she became Queen, and was the longest-serving royal consort in British history. The couple had 4 children, 8 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. Often controversial, he was also known for his wit, with the Queen regularly enjoying his famous sense of humour. In March, the Duke of Edinburgh left hospital after a month-long stay for treatment. He also underwent a procedure for a pre-existing heart condition. Flags on landmark buildings around Britain have been lowered to half-mast as a period of mourning was announced, and the funeral arrangements are set to be made over the coming days. Well, leaders from around the world have been reacting to the sad news of the Duke of Edinburgh's passing. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, remembered his distinguished career in the military, saying he was at the forefront of many community service initiatives. May his soul rest in peace. The Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, said Australians send our love and deepest condolences to Her Majesty and all the royal family. The Commonwealth family joins together in sorrow and thanksgiving for the loss and life of Prince Philip, while Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand said her thoughts would be with the Queen at this profoundly sad time. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson spoke at Downing Street to pay tribute to the Duke's role as the longest-serving consort in history, remembering the initiative he set up for young people in 1956.
With his Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, he shaped and inspired the lives of countless young people. And at literally tens of thousands of events, he fostered their hopes and encouraged their ambitions.
Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who has died at the age of 99. Well, let's look at some of the day's other news now. And 19 more officers have been injured in Northern Ireland, bringing the number hurt in a week to 74. Police deployed water cannon for the first time in 6 years after coming under attack again in Belfast. Crowds rioted on both sides of gates that separate a loyalist area and a nationalist area in West Belfast. Petrol bombs, fireworks and stones were again used to attack police, who have faced rising disorder since the 29th of March. Anti-coup protesters continue to gather to demonstrate against Myanmar's military junta despite its claims that a protest campaign against its rule was dwindling. More than 600 people have been killed by security forces cracking down on protests against the coup in which the military ousted the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar has ground to a standstill because of the protest campaign and widespread strikes against military rule. A spokesman of the military government told a news conference that ministries will resume full operations soon with a potential new crackdown on the protests. The Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi has accused Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of being a dictator. Mr. Draghi accused Mr. Erdogan of humiliating European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen earlier this week and said it was important to be frank with dictators. Ms. von der Leyen and European Council President Charles Michel met Erdogan in Ankara on Wednesday. The Commission chief was clearly taken aback when the two men sat on the only two chairs prepared, relegating her to an adjacent sofa. And finally, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk's neuroscience startup has released footage that it says shows a monkey playing video games using a brain-computer interface implant.
A Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago.
The 3-minute video released by the company shows a male monkey called Pager with Neuralink chips implanted on each side of its brain, using a joystick to follow a cursor on a screen. The monkey still moves the joystick out of habit, but the scientists have unplugged it. Pager is controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity. Co-founded by Musk in 2016, Neuralink aims to implant wireless brain-computer interfaces that include thousands of electrodes in the most complex human organ to help cure neurological conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, and spinal cord injuries. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Bayelsa State athlete Ifezibe Gagbe is targeting 10 gold medals after winning 6 in swimming at the ongoing National Sports Festival in Benue State, Edo State. Gagbe clinched the 800 meters freestyle women's event today with a time of 10 minutes, 41.01 seconds. The World Swimming Governing Body FINA has announced that an Olympics diving qualifier and test event will go ahead in Tokyo in May, but the marathon qualifier scheduled for Fukuoka has been moved to Portugal. The diving event was scheduled to begin on April the 18th, but FINA says it will now be held from May the 1st to the 6th following consultation with the Japanese Swimming Federation, games organizers, government and the IOC. And that sports news is back to Amarachi.
Thanks, Hayatunde. And the main news again. Acting Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali has re-strategized on tackling insecurity in the South-South and Southeast. Today he met with police commanders from the regions. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi.